Hey guys, it's me, Cyrus. Welcome to Packstravaganza. Yeah, a little dramatic, but this is a bunch of different versions of Pac-Man. We're going to have fun. We're going to check it out. Pac-Man on all kinds of old school video game consoles, all kinds of different hardware. We're just going to see several different versions of Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, different versions of the game, just to take a look at them. And this is not supposed to be like a fight to see which one is the best, so much as it is just an exploration of the differences and the nuance of different ports. Because I think they all have something interesting to offer. They're all unique, and it's fascinating to me to just see what was done with these different versions of this game. It's the same game, but every one of these games is different. And if you've never played Pac-Man, if you've never had that opportunity for some reason, then there are definite opportunities for you to do so. In fact, if you just go to Google and type in Pac-Man, a version of Pac-Man will actually pop up on the screen that you can just play with your keyboard. I'll show you what that looks like. You just play it right in the web browser. I mean, it's not really Pac-Man. It's like a derivative version of Pac-Man. But it's pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool. And it's available for free. You can just play it without doing anything. It's just sitting there waiting for you. So, if you want to try that, you can. Or, if you want to try one of these other versions, we're going to take a look. Now, there's a lot that we're going to go through here. And hopefully I can go through these pretty quickly. But I just want to show you why I think this is so interesting and so fascinating. So let's jump in with what I think is probably the most primitive version of Pac-Man, and for some people the most disappointing, and that's Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. Okay, as promised, first up, Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. Now this version does not even really look like a real version of Pac-Man. This looks like sort of like a homebrew, like I don't know, little bootleg version of Pac-Man. But this is actually the retail version that was released on the 2600. Since then, there's been a tremendous amount of progress in the homebrew community to make better versions of Pac-Man for the 2600. But this was what we had. This was what was out there first. So let's check it out. You're probably going to notice, well, it's not even really, even pointing out these things is kind of ridiculous because it's so obvious. This doesn't look like Pac-Man. This looks really weird. The Pac-Man himself is very simplified and kind of strange looking. The ghosts flicker like crazy. It's hard to even tell what color the ghosts are. The music, the sound effects, everything, the maze itself, everything is compromised. It's simplified, and obviously the AI for the ghosts is also simplified. So the game is just very strange. A lot of people did not like this game. When this came out, this upset a lot of people because it was so simplistic compared to what they were expecting. You know, Pac-Man is super popular. People have played this game all over the world and played it a lot, and so expectations were that it would look somewhat like the arcade. It was a little bit disappointing. There's only 2 ways in and out of the maze instead of all the other ways, as you can see. Oh, I got out of that somehow. But I'll tell you what, if you play this game, this a controversial statement I'm gonna make. If you play this game for a little while and you try to imagine yourself in the 80s when this came out in 1981, sitting at home, I mean, it actually is pretty fun. No, it's graphically not nearly as good as it should have been. Even for the 2600, this is pretty terrible looking. But it definitely is still fun. It still holds up as a fun experience. It's not broken. You know, you can actually play this. This is not like E.T., you know, or some of the other games on the 2600 that are just really broken. This one actually does function the way it's supposed to. It's just simple. So, yeah, it could be a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse. I don't know that that's necessarily an excuse. I'm not trying to like sugarcoat this. I mean, obviously this is not the ideal way to play Pac-Man, but I do think you could still have fun with it. When I was a kid, we were desperate to get this because, as far as I knew, Pac-Man was not released on the Intellivision. Of course, it ended up being released on Intellivision. I just never knew about it. But we really wanted Pac-Man, and I remember when I was a little kid, we were going to a birthday party for one of my little cousins, and they had an Atari 2600. We had an Intellivision, and they had an Atari. So my mom bought Pac-Man for us to give to him at his birthday party. And I was incredibly jealous. That was one of the first experiences I ever had with giving away something that I wanted really bad. And I struggled with it. I mean, I think I was maybe, I don't know, 6 years old or something like that. But it was a memory that has stuck with me. But later on, when I found out what Pac-Man was actually like on the 2600, I didn't feel nearly as jealous. Okay, so that's Pac-Man for the Atari 2600, basically. You get the gist of it. Now, Miss Pac-Man came out, and it was a huge upgrade. There was a lot of improvement, and it really showed what could have been done on the first game if they had spent a little bit more time with it. So let's take a look at Miss Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. Yeah, big upgrade for this next game. Obviously, they had more time with it and a little bit more know-how about how to get the most out of the hardware, because I think Miss Pac-Man just really shows a tremendous upgrade. So let's jump in. And you can see, like, the animation is better, the graphics are better. They have done a better job with the ghosts to let you identify what's going on with the ghosts. The intelligence of the ghosts is a little bit higher. The map works better. There's fruit that comes across the screen. I mean, this Pac-Man was an upgrade over Pac-Man in the arcade, but this version of Miss Pac-Man is a tremendous upgrade for this console. And I tell you what, this is the game to get. Like, if you had a 2600 and you wanted Pac-Man, this was the one, I think, the best one on the console. And a really fun version, too. It's still simplified. It's not the same as the arcade. It's definitely simplistic, but it's just a lot better. and a lot of fun. The beauty of Pac-Man is the game itself, no matter what hardware you put it on, it's pretty much hard to screw this up. You know, it's hard to make the game not fun. As long as it functions properly, it's just a simple little experience, but it translates well to other things. Okay, so this is Miss Pac-Man. Now, before we finish with the Atari 2600, we really should take a look at Junior Pac-Man and just see what it has to offer as well. So, let's do that now. Okay, Junior Pac-Man. Wow, now this is much more advanced. Yeah, it's kind of amazing the difference between the first Pac-Man and Junior Pac-Man. If you really take note of all the improvements to the games themselves, but also to what was possible with the programming on the Atari 2600. So, yeah, you've got a huge scrollable map, which means you've got a lot more detail in what actually is happening. The speed of the game is considerably higher. The graphics themselves are better. The detail, the animation, the little animations of Junior Pac-Man himself, you know, when he's going around the screen and also when he dies, just really cool. Lots of extra detail there included. The ghost's behavior is more advanced. The ghosts actually move in a more authentic way. There's more going on with them. It's easier to tell what color they are, and they're just improved in pretty much every way. So, yeah, this came out obviously in 1984, so 3 years of learning the hardware and making adjustments led to what's possible with Junior Pac-Man. It's pretty damn cool, I think. Let's jump in and check out some of this game. Yeah, this feels like a Pac-Man game. Look how everything is so much faster, and the sound effects are so much better. The way everything moves and reacts on the screen is so much more like a Pac-Man game. This is great. And I don't know, would you rather have this or Miss Pac-Man? I don't know, because both seem to be pretty damn good. Now this is a little different type of game because of the scrolling screen, so that might be something that you're not looking for. That might lead you to prefer Miss Pac-Man. But as far as like complexity of the game and detail of the graphics and the sound and everything, this is such an improvement. Oh, dang. Oh, I got him. Thought he got me. All right, let's try it one more time. It's just a great game. My Elgato's giving me a little trouble here. This old hardware sometimes gives you some glitches when you're trying to capture stuff. Sorry about that. This is playing on my Atari 7800. It is not a modified console in any way, shape, or form. So I'm having to amplify the signal and convert it to composite to get it to capture like this. So there's a couple extra steps in the chain there. Sometimes that can cause some glitches and issues. But overall, I'd say that Junior Pac-Man seems to be pretty much glitch and issue free. This is really cool. So much better than that first Pac-Man game. Very decent version of Pac-Man. Graphics are still simplified. Obviously, your pellets that you're eating still look like little bricks instead of dots. But there's only so much the 2600 can do, you know? Hardware is pretty limited. Okay, so we've already looked at Miss Pac-Man on the Atari 7800 before, but I'll look at it again just real quick just to remind you what that's like. All right, here we are with Miss Pac-Man on the 7800. Now, obviously, this hardware is far more advanced, so this is going to be much closer to the arcade, as you can see. There have been some homebrew improvements to the Pac-Man games on the 7800 as well, so you should check those out if you get a chance on Atari Age and some of the other websites that talk about old school Atari stuff. But Miss Pac-Man on the 7800 is a very solid experience. Oh, he got me. You know, eventually Pac-Man did get released on the Intellivision, and I didn't even know about it until just a few years ago. So, if you'd like, we can take a look at Pac-Man for the Intellivision and see what that experience is like. Is it as good as the 2600 versions of Pac-Man, or at least as good as that first version of Pac-Man we looked at? Is it better? Well, let's see. Let's see what we have. Wow. Like, isn't it weird to see the Atari logo on the Intellivision? Very strange. But here it is. Pac-Man on the Intellivision. And this came out in 83, so a couple of years after that initial release for the 2600. As you can see, I mean, obviously just looking at this, you can tell the Intellivision version has a higher fidelity. But let's see what the actual game looks like. So, does start out a little slow, but the graphics are like way improved over that first Atari version. I would say these graphics are probably close to what you get with that Miss Pac-Man release on the 2600. It's probably in the same ballpark as that. Maze is definitely simplified. You have two exits on the either side instead of on the top and bottom, though, like the 2600 version. Let's try that again. The animation is a little weird. It takes a little getting used to here. Plus you're playing with this disc, which... The disc works pretty well for some Intellivision games. In some games it's a little weird. This one, it's working fine. It's just going to take me a second to get used to it. I've been playing with the D-pad controller hooked up to my Atari 7800, which is actually way better than using a joystick. So I guess the fair thing would be to compare using the disc to the old Atari joystick. In which case, this is definitely going to be an improvement. Those old school Atari sticks, man, a lot of times they just did not want to work. You would like pull and press and couldn't get them to register different directions. People were absolutely brutal to those joysticks. This is a very simplified version of Pac-Man, just like the 2600 version is simplified. But I would say, I think if you were to compare those, this is way, way better. Is this better than Miss Pac-Man on the 2600? No, it's not. And it's definitely not better than that Junior Pac-Man, because that's actually way more advanced than this. Very impressive game for the 2600, to be honest. Pac-Man was also released on the Atari 5200 and the Atari 8-bit computer, which are very similar. Obviously, the hardware is almost exactly the same. The main difference between Pac-Man on those two is on the 5200 you have analog control, which is terrible for Pac-Man. It was also released on the NES. We're going to look at a few more of these in just a second. And just wrap this up for the Intellivision version of Pac-Man. Okay, let's move on and fire up the Atari 5200 version. Okay, next up is Pac-Man for the Atari 5200. My console is S-Video modded, so should be a pretty clear signal. Let's check it out. As you can see, I'm really not having too much trouble controlling Pac-Man, even though I am using this analog stick. You just have to make better decisions about what I'm doing. But the control's not the issue. I'd probably go as far as to say I think this game controls better on the 5200 than it does on the Intellivision. It just feels a little bit easier to manage. Oh, ran right into him. You can see the maze. If you were to compare this to either the Intellivision Pac-Man or the 2600 Pac-Man, yeah, this is a tremendous upgrade. The maze is better. The animation, pretty much everything is better. I think the graphic of Pac-Man himself might look better on the Intellivision. I think that might be better. But, you know, pretty much, yeah, it's tough to say. If you had one side by side, I don't know how you would feel. And obviously comparing this to the 2600 version is pretty tough, because that's, yeah, very simple. Ah, crap, they got me. Do one more here. I really like this version. You wouldn't think that I would, like I said, because everybody really has said such terrible things about the Atari 5200 controller. You wouldn't think it would be an enjoyable experience. But don't believe what everybody says. Try things for yourself. You might find that you disagree with what the popular opinion is. Oh, ran right into him. God dang it. Okay, we're also going to need to check out Miss Pac-Man on the Atari 5200 before we move on. So it'll be interesting to see how that compares to the 2600 and the 7800 versions, because Miss Pac-Man on 2600 was actually pretty impressive. And of course on the 7800 it's really good. Not quite arcade perfect, but still pretty good. So let's check that out. Okay, here we go. Miss Pac-Man for the 7800. Let's jump in. Starts out a little slow. The game does get faster as you go, and you can change that if you want to change the difficulty when you start. Graphically, I think it's really nice. Not quite as detailed as the 7800 version, but still very nice. And it controls very, very easily with the stick. Uh-oh, caught up to me. Not too bad. So I've been mentioning that the Atari 5200 and the Atari computer are basically the same hardware. And the main difference between playing games on one or the other is the control. Because the Atari computer used analog controls. I mean, excuse me. The Atari computer used digital controls. The Atari 5200 used analog controls. That's the main difference. So, let's get my Atari computer fired up, because there's a bunch of different types of Pac-Man that you can play if you own one of those systems, including some very interesting homebrew versions as well. Let's check that out. Okay, so here is Pac-Man, just the standard Pac-Man for the 8-bit computer, and it's basically identical to the 5200 version. This is over composite instead of S-video. That's really the only difference here. And I have digital controls, so yeah, it's probably a little bit easier to control this. This is probably like, of the versions that we've played so far, this is probably the ideal way to play. I'm running this off my Atari XEGS. Ah, crap. Now we gotta look at Miss Pac-Man next for sure. All right, Miss Pac-Man. Here we go. And for all intents and purposes, it's, again, identical to what you have on the Atari 5200. But that is definitely not all that you can do if you're interested in Pac-Man on the XEGS. Have you ever heard of Super Pac-Man? Well, there is a version for this computer. Ah, crap. Seems to run pretty well. Graphics are pretty good. This was not my favorite version of Pac-Man in the arcades, but it's still pretty cool. There are some other interesting versions of Pac-Man that you can try, if you would so like to, on this computer as well. And if you want to do that, you're going to need a way to play homebrew stuff, but I think it's worth checking out. This is a homebrew hack of Pac-Man called Pac-Man Final, and they have a very robust community for the Atari 8-bit computer where people are still making software today and trying to improve older games and things like that. So let's check this out. Oh man, I ran right into that guy. You can see they made some improvements to some of the sounds and various different things in the game. Crap. But that's not all. There's actually more. This is called Miss Pac-Man Encore. And again, has some improvements. So we'll just check it out for a minute. You can see they sped it up a little bit. Animation is improved. Some sound effects are better. Just overall snappier experience. This might be my favorite of these versions, of these 8-bit versions. It's really cool. Notice they gave Miss Pac-Man her lipstick back. Not every version has that. Oh, there we go. There's another version too we could check out real quick. Now here's a pretty interesting little homebrew. Somebody put this together completely on their own, not based on the other versions of Pac-Man. But here it is. Martin Day's version of Pac-Man for the Atari computer. I mean, it's simple, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool somebody did this. I mean, it's not going to set the world on fire, but I mean, I couldn't do it. It's beyond my capacity. I think it's pretty cool. There's more. Wait, there's more. Here we go. Pac Munch Jr. This one's pretty funny. It's pretty weird, but it's another homebrew version of Pac-Man on the Atari computer. Look at this. This maze is crazy. Pretty wild stuff. And there's other homebrew versions and enhanced versions of Pac-Man that you'll see pop up, like Baby Pac-Man and things like that on the 7800, Pac-Man Arcade on the 7800. So many different versions on Atari things. But Pac-Man's on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Pac-Man's on the Master System and Game Boy. So let's check out some more stuff. All right, here's where things start to get interesting. I mean, they've already been, I think, pretty interesting, but the Nintendo Entertainment System has some very interesting variations. This is Pac-Man for the NES. It's released by Tengen, however you say it. That's Atari, by the way, if you don't know. But it was actually a Namco game, so it was released also by Namco, so it's got a double release. As far as I can tell, both versions of this are the same, other than just having the Tengen label on there, or Tengen, however you say it. Yeah, so they're basically the same. I think this is a pretty decent version of Pac-Man, other than it just feels a little strange because Pac-Man is humongous. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I feel like Pac-Man is way too big in this version for some reason. But graphically, it looks good and it plays good. It gets faster as you go. It does start out pretty slow, which is fine. But yeah, it does continue to get faster and faster and build. So this is a good version of Pac-Man in that regard. This has been re-released on a number of different platforms. This particular version, I mean. It's a virtual console title that was released for various consoles, and then it was re-released in a Namco collection that you can actually play on your modern consoles, PlayStation, Xbox, stuff like that. I don't think it's really worth taking a look at the Namco release, because as far as I can tell, like I said, they're exactly the same. If somebody knows of a difference between them other than just the title, let me know, because I don't know that there is a difference. Also released on the NES is Miss Pac-Man, and that's going to be interesting. Let's take a look at that. Alright, now this is Miss Pac-Man released by Namco. 1 or 2 player, you can trade off playing. Not much to select here. There's an arcade mode and a hard mode. That's about the biggest difference here. Jump into single player. You notice this looks very similar to Pac-Man, the way Pac-Man looked for the NES. Looks basically the same. It's just a couple of differences. But yeah, as far as sound and the control and the graphics and everything, I have no issues with this. Perfectly fine. It is kind of strange that the maze is green starting off. Those are the kind of weird little differences that I like to really take note of, you know? I wonder what the decision making was for that. Oop, oop, almost ran into them. Ugh. Run away. Ugh, they got me. Ah, crap. Okay. Now, what's interesting to note is there's another version of Miss Pac-Man, and it is quite a bit different. So let's check that out. This is the Tengen version, and yeah, I was pretty shocked to see how different this version is. It's got a lot in common with the arcade version, but it's doing its own thing too. And if you want options, take a look at this. Look at all these options. So yeah, lots of different options for different ways to play. Pack booster. So you can speed your game up. Difficulty normal. Maze selection. Look at this. All kinds of different ways you can select a maze. Yeah. Look at this. Totally different experience. Not even sure if it's supposed to look this way, but it does. Very strange. Totally different. Graphics, sound effects, mazes, everything's different. There we go. Weird. Try those other modes and see what that looks like. Okay, so arcade, mini, big, strange. Let's see what mini looks like. That's interesting. Literally a smaller map, or a smaller maze. Check out another option on here. Okay, arcade mini. Let's see what big looks like. It's weird how it puts the text over and the... If it's supposed to do that, that's weird. I don't know if it's supposed to look like this or not, but it is strange. Wow. Well, there's other stuff to look at. You wouldn't believe some of the other versions of Pac-Man that are available on the NES. So let's take a look. This is Pac-Land. It's based on the Pac-Man cartoon and on an arcade game. This was also released on the TurboGrafx 16, which I think is probably the best version for the home market. It's weird, like to move on the screen, you use the buttons to go left and right instead of the D-pad, and you jump by pressing up or down. Very strange. Oop, ran into that dude. And you still chomp on the ghost. Hang on, let me adjust something. That's a lot better. Some of these games for the Nintendo, I have to switch a filter on my RetroTink to get the color to look better. So this is one of those games, and I think it looks a lot better now. So if you have a RetroTink, keep that in mind. You might need to change your comb filter for certain consoles. Oh, ran right into that dude. Oh, and ran right into that guy. God dang it. I don't know what I'm thinking. Did you get the gist of this game? There's as weird as it is to see Pac-Man in a sort of a cartoon like aesthetic where he's like running around like a platformer. There's another Pac-Man game on the NES that is attempts to do something 3D. Let's check that out. All right, now this is Pac-Mania, and it's like I said, it attempts to sort of make Pac-Man do like semi 3D stuff. Remind you of like Sonic 3D Blast and stuff like that, but it's Pac-Man. I like the animation. The graphics are good. Everything's actually pretty cool. You can jump, look at that. I don't exactly know how Pac-Man is jumping with no legs, but he's pulling it off. This was really cool when it came out. I can remember renting this and thinking, man, this is way better. This is the best Pac-Man I've ever played. I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely pretty cool. But is this the best Pac-Man on the NES? I don't know. That's up for you to decide. But before you make that decision, there's a Pac-Man on the NES that wasn't ever officially released on the NES, but it was created for the NES, and then the ROM was leaked or ripped, or anyway, it's available if you want to find it. And I think it's, for me, the Pac-Man that I want to play the most on the NES these days. And it's extremely impressive for the console. So, let's check that out. This is Pac-Man Championship Edition. You may have played this on more modern consoles, but you can play it on the actual NES. That's right, you just need an EverDrive, and then you can play it on real hardware. So, let's check it out. Damn it. Very furious game, like fast-paced. Really cool. I love this new take on Pac-Man. But Pac-Man is available on other consoles besides the NES as well, so let's move on and take a look at what Pac-Man looks like on the Game Boy. All right, here we have Pac-Man for the Nintendo Game Boy. 1 or 2 players if you're able to do that, but just jump in and take a look at it. Obviously, this would be completely in black and white if you were playing it on a actual Game Boy, or green and black to be more specific, but there's some color options playing it on Super Game Boy here. And overall, I think this, I mean, if you don't mind the scrolling maze, I think this is pretty cool. I like the graphics. I like the sound. I like the animations. Not too bad. Believe it or not, there's Miss Pac-Man on the Game Boy as well. Let's take a look at that. Alright, and here's Miss Pac-Man. You'll notice some similarities to the NES version, or at least the Namco NES version. Let's check it out. I really like the animation on the Miss Pac-Man sprite. That's really cool. They did her eyebrows and everything. It's pretty cool. Or her lashes, not her eyebrows. Eyelashes. Not too bad, actually. Graphics are good. I like how it has the built-in color information for your Super Game Boy. You can play it that way. Pretty cool. even has a animation. That's pretty cool. But is this the only Game Boy Pac-Man game? Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, is that it? Is there nothing else? Or is there something pretty interesting and pretty crazy on this console? Let's find out. All right, and this is Pac in Time. Look at this. It's got its own custom border for the Super Game Boy and everything. I love these enhanced games. Let's check it out. Our hero, Pac-Man, has not always been the cool video game dude we know and love. Only because the evil ghost witch and her flunkies, the ghost monsters, invaded his world, was Pac-Man forced to survive so many crazy elements. Since then, Pac-Man lives happily with Mrs. Pac-Man and their two cute Pac kids. But Pac's friend... I can't read this, it's going too fast. Following the failure of her diabolical plans, they decided to eliminate Pac-Man once and for all. The Ghost Witch cast... How is anybody supposed to read this much text this quickly on a Game Boy? On a Game Boy, this thing would be blurry as hell anyway. By the way, I want to point out, I appreciate that they have... she's now been upgraded to Mrs. Pac-Man instead of just Miss Pac-Man. That's good. Good for you, Pac-Man. You did the right thing. Okay, so I can't read all that. But you can pause it and read it. Sheesh. All right, Pac in Time. You're probably like, what kind of game is this? Well, you're about to find out. Oop. There we go. Like, how do I get up there? Like that. Oh boy, and then I died. I've never played this before. I don't know if you can tell. Oh, okay. I think I understand. We gotta bounce. Okay. Eesh. Oh, close one. Come on, dang it. This is hard. Like slipping around on like ice. I'm gonna throw a Hadoken. Yeah, I mean, They should have added Pac-Man to the list of the Street Fighter characters if we can pull that crap off. Oh man, this is incredibly difficult. How would you ever do this on a Game Boy? Okay, this is really hard. What am I supposed to do there? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oops. Oh, crap. Wow. Maybe you'll do better than I can at Pack in Time. Try it for yourself and find out. Okay, one last console we're going to take a look at before we check out a couple more modern Pac-Man titles and things like that. We're going to check out the Sega Master System. All right, so we don't have Pac-Man on the Sega Master System, but we do have Miss Pac-Man. So let's check this one out. All right, so a lot of options like that Tengen version on the NES. Same type of versions, or same type of menu here. Wow. That is some weird looking graphics. Very different. This definitely they took some liberties here. This does not look like any other version of this that I've ever seen. Except maybe I think the Sega Genesis has a version that looks kind of like this. I don't even know what to say. It's so different. You got kind of a neon thing going with everything, and Miss Pac-Man looks like a totally different... It's like, the role of Miss Pac-Man will now be played by Patricia Young, or whatever, you know. They used to do that on the soap operas back in the day. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I guess if you had never played the original, or if you didn't really care that much, this really would just be like whatever. You really wouldn't even notice. But anybody that's played Miss Pac-Man for any length of time is going to look at this and they're going to have some questions. That's all I'm saying. They're going to have some questions. I'll also note that the control is a little bit weird. It's like, I'm not going to say laggy, but there's definitely something weird with the controls. That is disappointing. As awesome as the Master System is, it should be able to do Miss Pac-Man arcade, well, maybe not arcade perfect, but pretty good. This is like some kind of remastered version, like remake of Miss Pac-Man. I think they were trying to jazz it up and make it a little more like cool for the kids or something, like for the younger kids who didn't grow up with Miss Pac-Man. I don't know. It's pretty weird. I don't want to hate on it just because it's different, though, you know? It is pretty different, but... Well, luckily, it's not the only Pac-Man game on the Master System. There's actually one more. And it might be really cool. I have never tried it, so let's do that right now. You played Pac-Mania on the NES? Well, there is a Master System version as well, with a lot more colors. We'll see if it plays better. If it looks better. It definitely looks like it looks better. Let's jump in and check it out. I mean, it looks pretty close. The NES version does look very similar. What are you going to do, though? The Master System is just much more capable, you know, console as far as graphics are concerned. I think the animation might be a little better on the NES version. Looking at it, as far as the frame rate and everything. But, it does look nice. It looks nice on Master System. There are like tons of like variants of versions of Pac-Man for all kinds of consoles, and you know, I'm not going to be able to get to all of them in this video. Maybe I'll do a part 2 and look at some of the other interesting variants. But we're going to end this video off with a look at the Namco Museum Pac-Man for the PlayStation 1, the original PlayStation. It's basically just the arcade version, but I think I might be wrong about this, but I think it was like the first time that you could play the arcade version of Pac-Man on a home console in 240p, and it was basically arcade perfect. So let's take a look at that. All right, so first up, we're going to take a look at Namco Museum Volume 1 for the PlayStation 1. It's running on my PS3. And this has Pac-Man that we can check out. And there's so many different like re-releases that Namco has done, different versions of Museum and just standalone versions of Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man that they've released over the years for everything, for all the consoles, for the handhelds, for PC, for everything. So, you know, we'll take a look at these two Namco Museum versions. We might do one more after that. We might do one more. And I think that's a pretty good assessment of a lot of different variety of different versions of this classic arcade game. I love playing Pac-Man. I think everybody has their favorite way to play and their favorite version. And the Namco Museum version is pretty cool because you can actually do 240p on a CRT TV with it, which is actually pretty awesome. Other than that, I think my favorite is the enhanced homebrew versions for the Atari XEGS. That's probably my favorite. But I don't have the special arcade version that was released for the 7800. I don't have that. And I've heard good things about that. Okay, let's jump into Pac-Man. Here we go. And as you can see, this is running the arcade through like an emulator, basically, which is what all that stuff is. You see the arcade checks and everything. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. There we go. Well, as you can see, this is the arcade. It's scaled down a little bit. But that's because the screen is facing the other direction. You know, normally the arcade has the picture tube turned sideways. But if you're wanting to do something interesting with this game, see if I can figure out how to bring the menu up again. There's a way to do this. Okay, sorry about that. So you have to set everything up when you're at the title screen of the game. You can't actually do it in the game. So here you go into the dip switch test screen, and from here you can make some changes like to these dip switches. You can flip the screen so it's, you know, flips the orientation so you can use the full resolution of the screen, and different things. There's different stuff you can set up here, which we're not going to mess with, but anyway. Couldn't figure out how to set that up. If you're so inclined, you can check out Miss Pac-Man. It's on a different one of these Namco Museum discs. I'll show you right here. Okay. It's on volume 3, so we'll check that out. Okay, and here comes Miss Pac-Man. Oops. Oh, and there you go. All right, last we'll check out Pac-Man Museum here on the PlayStation 3. There we go. All right.
Pac-Man Museum.
There we go. Pac-Man, Pac-Mania, Pac-and-Pow, Pac-Land, Super Pac-Man, Pac-Attack. There's so many versions of Pac-Man you could play here and just have a blast. So, anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for being a part of this channel, for hanging out with me. I'm sure you're going to see a lot more Pac-Man over, over the course of the life of this channel. It's a game that I thoroughly enjoy playing in pretty much any way I can. Even that weird, ridiculous Atari 2600 version and that weird, ridiculous Sega Master System version of Miss Pac-Man. I still enjoy them. So, alright, thanks for watching. I will be back soon with more videos. And maybe we'll cover some other variants of Pac-Man if you're interested in that. I don't know. But that's it for now. I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.